and welcome to Speaker's Corner. No, my name is not Mick Jagger. I am Gabor Zinner, and I am one of the organizers of this event. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Zinner Law Office and the organizers of today's event to Speaker's Corner. For those of you who are attending for the first time, I would like to make a few introductory comments about the character and purpose of Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner is a fresh air experience offering Calgarians an opportunity to address topical issues, exchange ideas, and enjoy the stimulation of fresh perspectives. Speaker's Corner is a time-honored tradition practiced in many democratic centres around the world, most notably at Hyde Park in London, England. We in Canada are blessed to live in a free and democratic society where freedom of expression is taken for granted.
Talkway.
At Speaker's Corner, you have the right to participate in civic life by speaking your mind on topics about which you may feel passionate. You also have the right to just listen, enjoy, and evaluate the ideas that speakers are trying to urge upon you. At Speaker's Corner, you will be confronted with points of view totally opposed to your own. You will be offered the opportunity to challenge both an opposing point of view as well as your own assumptions about what is true and what is right. It is well to keep an open mind because we know that the heresy of today becomes the orthodoxy of tomorrow, and the orthodoxy of today becomes the heresy of tomorrow. There was a time when you could get excommunicated from the church simply for suggesting that the earth rotates around the sun as opposed to the other way around, which we now, of course, take for granted. Until relatively recently, in broad historical terms, it was thought that women should not have the right to vote or to own property. Well, of course, this is heresy today. Needless to say, today we find these views ridiculous. Because no one has a monopoly on truth, you are encouraged to be respectful of the speakers who come forward and the points of view that are presented. One of the admirable qualities of Canadian society is that we have developed a way of being able to disagree without being disagreeable. As a society, we advance through respectful dialogue and debate. This need not exclude passionate, heated debate. It should just be respectful. We encourage you to step up to the mic and share your views, ask questions, make comments, and participate. However, you are encouraged to attack the idea or the position advanced and not the speaker. We try on a weekly basis to find subjects that are current, topical, and controversial, kicked off by knowledgeable speakers who can present a point of view. As a person stepping up to the microphone, you will have the complete and unfettered freedom to advocate and to criticize, subject only to the 5 following exceptions. Slander and defamation. These are falsehoods that injure the reputation of individuals, contravene the law, and will not be allowed. Statements or rants which offend against the hate laws of Canada will not be allowed. This, for example, includes making derogatory statements about an identifiable class of persons, such as a race, minority group, or people of sexual orientation. Vulgarity and obscenity of speech will be cut off. You have to stay on topic. Comments unconnected to the discussion of the hour will be deemed out of order and cut off. Lastly, once you make your point, and thereafter start to get repetitive, the moderator will have the right to cut you off. I have the privilege of being the moderator today, which is a task I will share with Dr. Bailey. The ideal format for every session, when we can arrange it, is to have one knowledgeable commentator speak to a topic, with another presenting an opposing point of view. After the introductory speeches, again, as I stated earlier, it will be open mic. You can simply step up to the mic to comment, criticize, advocate, and offer your own perspectives. Our topic of discussion today is Egypt. We are all shocked and dismayed by what we see on nightly television. The repression, the brutality, the daily loss of life, the perversion of democracy, the struggle for civic rights, and the corresponding deterioration of the local economy, which has also suffered immensely. When we first planned having a debate on Egypt, well over a month ago, the topic for debate was simply the following question: how does the ouster of Mohamed Morsi advance or hinder the cause of democracy and social progress in Egypt? That was a simple question. However, the chaos and carnage that the world has witnessed during the past 2 weeks has given rise to numerous ancillary and interconnected questions, such as, for example, can the forceful removal of an elected government ever be justified in the name of democracy? Where is Mohamed Morsi? What crime has he committed that deserves incarceration without a formal charge? If he's alleged to have committed one or more crimes, why is he not formally charged and given an open and fair trial? Why does the media not have access to him to ensure that he is not being tortured and to get his comments? Are the Western powers complicit for failing to openly call the seizure of power a coup? Should the Western powers intervene? What right do foreign powers have to intervene in the internal affairs of a sovereign nation? Did the corruption of democracy begin with Morsi himself? Did Morsi's changes to the Constitution represent the first perversion of the fragile democracy that elected him? Did Morsi thereby betray the democratic mandate that was conferred upon him? Was the deterioration of the Egyptian economy due to his own policies and his own failures? If so, was that sufficient justification for his forceful removal? Can the military ever be trusted to deliver true democracy? Some of the burning questions facing Egypt and the world. Today we have two speakers, one in favor of the ouster and one opposed. I would like to call upon Dr. Aliyah Bailey to introduce the speakers. We owe a debt of gratitude to her. Dr. Bailey may be properly regarded as the organizer of today's event, including finding our speakers. Please help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Bailey to introduce your speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also welcome everyone and thank you for coming out today. I know there's a lot going on in the city. So we have two speakers for you today. We have Mohamed Hassani, I'm sorry if I say it wrong, and Jamil Selim. Mohamed was born in Egypt and moved to Calgary when he was 11 years old. He just completed his master's in biochemistry at the University of Calgary. He has published one article, has finished a second, and is working on his third. He has also just accepted a research position at Alberta Biophotonics, which specializes in producing a highly sensitive DNA, protein, and ion detection instruments. And he will be pursuing his PhD in the same topic at the beginning of 2015. Our second speaker, Dr. Jamil Selim, obtained his PhD in political science from the University of Calgary in 2011. Currently, he is Associate Professor of Political Sciences at Port Said University in Egypt and the British University in Egypt. Sorry. I'm not used to speaking with paper, sorry. He also serves as sessional instructor at the Department of Political Science at the University of Calgary between 2008 and 2011. Dr. Selim's research interests are situated in the field of international relations and Middle East politics. He's given numerous papers in international conferences and has published a few books as well as many journal articles and book chapters. But first, I'd like to give you a fast little bit of history on what's been going on politically with Egypt to help you understand and get a little bit more out of today's speeches. Egypt has never been a democracy. It didn't gain its independence until after World War II. Egypt has never, Jamal Nasser was the first important leader in the sense that he was the father of modern Egypt. His ideology was secular, pan-Arab, and socialist, but he did not support democracy. He was succeeded by Anwar Sadat, who was general of the Egyptian military. He made peace with Israel in 1978 at the Camp David Accords, and as a result of this, he was assassinated by Egyptian radicals. He was succeeded by Hossein Mubarak, another general and former head of the Air Force. He was in power from 1980 to 2012, when he was overthrown in mass protest about suppression of the Muslim Brotherhood, a lack of democracy, and massive corruption. As a result, Egypt then had its first modern democratic election, which was won by Mohamed Morsi with the backing of the Muslim Brotherhood. After 1 year in power, the military have overthrown him, installing the now reigning interim government with those who they chose to rule. There is a deep division right now between the Islamists and the secularists, and it was the secularists that were opposed to Morsi. I had a blogger and a friend of mine make an interesting comment, and I'd like to share it. It says that it's been said that one test of a democracy is whether it can mediate political differences within constitutional boundaries. So I think that's really a big issue with what's happening there right now. And I'd like to call on our first speaker, Dr. Selim.
Thank you so much for this introduction. Today I will talk about what's going on in Egypt, how the removal of President Morsi is considered a positive step towards the introduction of a genuine democracy in the country. First, I would like to make very few remarks about the meaning of democracy and the meaning of elections. We in political science, we know that elections does not give absolute authority or does not give absolute legitimacy. The fact that you are coming to power by elections does not mean that you are totally free to do whatever you want in the country. No. Okay? The fact that into the right direction. However, as time went on, we gradually discovered that all his promises, all his commitments were violated and were broken day after day. So my major point is that elections in themselves do not guarantee genuine democracy. We may recall that elections brought Hitler into power in Germany. Elections brought Ahmadinejad into power in Iran. Elections brought Hamas into power in Palestine. And we did not accept the outcome of these elections because they brought a terrorist organization into power, and we decided to boycott this government and to boycott Hamas because it brought the wrong person, the wrong party into power. And I may recall that the Canadian government was the first government to boycott Hamas and not to recognize its legitimacy, although it came to power by election. So that's my main point. In Egypt, we accepted the presidency of Morsi, we accepted his legitimacy. However, we discovered that our expectations, our, if you will, hopes were dashed. First of all, what happened during the last year was an attempt to reintroduce or to reproduce the authoritarian state in Egypt, however, under a religious flavor. So it was an authoritarian state, okay? He made every effort to bring his supporters, to bring back his supporters into the main elements or the main corners of the state. He violated his constitutional promises. He violated the constitution. He issued a constitutional declaration which put himself above the law. So imagine a prime minister, imagine a president who is not subject to any judicial review, who is not subject to any supervision by the judiciary. So simply he can do whatever he wants without any judicial accountability. He enforced a new constitution on the Egyptians without any consensus, okay? So there was an attempt to impose his vision on society by all means, through violence, through the use of force, or the use of his own militias in order to achieve whatever he is looking for. So that was the basic violations at the constitutional level. The second thing is the level of human rights in Egypt under the presidency of Morsi. You will be surprised to know that the level of torture, the level of human rights abuses reached unprecedented levels in Egypt over the last year. Torture has become systematic. It has become part of the daily routine of the state in dealing with the opposition. The use of violence against political opponents has become part of the daily process of the government. In Egypt, over the last year, people are becoming in a desperate condition, and there was no hope for a better future. In fact, the hope for the future was totally blocked under his presidency. That was at the level of the economy and social rights. Despite all these failures, despite all these frustrations, Egyptians did not ask for the removal of Morsi. In fact, they accepted his legitimacy and they asked him, well, in the light of the current polarization in society, in the light of the current violence in the streets, you should call for early elections. And that's a normal procedures which usually takes place in any democratic society whenever there is a crisis between the state and a major section in society. So it's not something which is unusual or something which is out of the box. However, he threatened us. He threatened the Egyptians. He threatened the opposition. Either you shut up or you go to jail. I will stay for 4 years. I will not call for early elections. I will continue in the presidency and I will defend my legitimacy, quote unquote, with my blood. So imagine a democratically elected president threatening his own people with jail or with violence. That's the reaction we got from Egyptians. So the normal scenario or the normal development of what happened is that Egyptians started to ask the question, how can we deal with this crisis? How can we deal with this fundamentalist government which is taking Egypt as a hostage to its fundamentalist, terrorist, extremist view of politics? The only institution which could act as a counterbalance to this dominance of religious fundamentalism was the military establishment. So the major question which was circulated in Egypt over the last 3 months was, when will the military step in? How can the military save us from this religious dictatorship? The military made it clear that it's professional and it's not aiming to intervene in politics. It's a professional army and it respects the legitimacy of the president. However, the military advised the president to solve the problem in a peaceful way, to accommodate the opposition, and to try to listen to our demands. That's the normal way democracy works in any other state. How to listen to people in the street and how to accommodate the frustration and anger. However, all these proposals, all these initiatives were refused. The military asked President Morsi to call for early elections and to renew his legitimacy through these elections. If people decided to bring him to power again, that's fine. He has our full support. But if people decided to change, then you have to respect the will of the people. Despite all these calls from the military, President Morsi rejected, and he called his supporters to go to the streets to defend his legitimacy by all means, including violence. Imagine. So imagine this situation. The president's supporters are gathering into the streets of Cairo, Alexandria, and major cities in the country, threatening the opposition with violence, while the opposition and the larger segment of Egyptians are looking for change and looking for a way out from this crisis. Imagine in this situation, if the military did not step in, what would be the scenario in Egypt? With two groups, with each one marching in millions in the streets, facing each other, carrying weapons, carrying arms, heavy gunfires against each other. It would be a civil war. It would be a bloodshed in Egyptian streets. So what happened in June 30 and July the 3rd was an attempt to save Egypt from that ugly and dark scenario. The military stepped in. He asked the president to step in from power. And after that, the military did not control the state. In fact, we have an interim president now in Egypt who is the head of the highest constitutional court in the country. He is the interim president of the government. We have a committee which is now looking for amendments into the constitution, and there are presidential and parliamentary elections to be held very soon in the coming 6 months. So the military is not ruling now in Egypt as some media news are trying to portray the situation in Egypt. The military is not ruling the country. In fact, the military has saved us from this religious fundamentalist fanatic government. Otherwise, we would have turned into another Iran. We would have turned into another Hamas. So the military has saved us. The military has called for the brotherhood to abandon the violent approach and to become part of the process. So no one was calling for the exclusion of the Islamists or the exclusion of the brotherhood from the political process. That is totally acceptable. We are calling for their integration into the process and to become part of society. Yes, they made mistakes, however, they are an important segment of Egyptian society. They cannot be ignored and they cannot be abandoned. They must be part of the process. However, despite all these promises, they insisted on the use of violence against the state and against innocent Egyptians. They made a sit-in in 2 of the major populated centers in Cairo, in Nasr City and Giza governorates. This is 2 of the most heavily populated areas in Cairo. And they stayed for almost 45 days, refusing all calls to go home. In fact, using violence against innocent civilians, launching raids on neighborhoods, attacking people in their homes, attacking people in the streets, attacking police stations with heavy gunfire, with removal gunfire. So, how can you deal with this situation? If you have a group of gangs or if you have a group of terrorists staying in downtown Calgary and using violence, terrorizing the people in Calgary, how can the state deal with this situation? Can we call this a peaceful demonstration that must be respected? No. Despite the use of violence, the state waited for 45 days to convince them in order to settle this crisis in a peaceful way. The American government sent its officials to mediate between the 2 sides. Ashton, the European Union official, she went to Cairo, she visited Morsi himself in his place, and she made sure that he is treated in a very respectable way, and she made it clear that the state is treating Morsi in a very respectable way, and everyone was making sure that President Morsi is in a safe place, and he is currently, by the way, he's facing a safe trial now. He's facing a safe trial now. So he is not arrested, and he is not isolated from the world. In fact, American, European officials visited him, and they have very strong connection to his associates to make sure that he is treated in a respectable and human way. So, how can you deal with this situation? How can you deal with a situation like that? What happened in Egypt 3 or 4 days ago, this was something which no one can sympathize with. In fact, no one can accept the death of an innocent people or an innocent citizen, regardless of his religion, regardless of his race or his nationality. But when a group of people carrying arms, carrying heavy weapons, threatening other innocent people with all types of violence, how can you deal with that? That's the question. That's the question. So, by the end, My main conclusion is that the removal of Morsi was an important step in order to restore our revolution. I belong to a generation which lived under Mubarak for 30 years. We didn't know the meaning of democracy, we didn't know the meaning of freedom and human rights, except over the last 2 years. But suddenly we discovered that our revolution was stolen from us. Our revolution was hijacked, was kidnapped by a group of fundamentalists who wants to bring us into the Iranian model or the model of Hamas, and that's what we did not accept. We want a genuine, stable democracy which can include all segments of people into the political process without any exclusion. But when it comes to the use of violence, I think the national security of the state, the security of individuals, should be given the utmost concern and the utmost consideration by the state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hassanin. Sorry, Dr. Salim. Mr. Hassanin is about to come. He's coming next. So there will be an opportunity for questions and comments, but before that, we'd like to hear the opposing point of view from Mohammed Hassanin. Please welcome him.
First of all, I want to thank the organizers, the Speakers Corner, and thank you all for coming in today. You know, it's amazing that at the beginning of the speech we heard how blessed and honored we are, how gifted we are to live in a democratic and free society. A society that cares for its people, that allows people to give their views, their ideas, their expressions, feelings, without any repercussions and without any fear. For example, when I came in today, I was pretty confident that there wasn't going to be a sniper waiting for me behind that tree over there, waiting for me to say something he does not like, and therefore he's going to pull his trigger. Or a police officer that was waiting on the side of the road with his police car, waiting for me to say something he does not like. They'll take me and put me in jail. I was sure that was not going to happen. And therefore, when I came in today, I was confident that I can come and express myself freely, openly, and without any repercussion. You know, the setting we have today is very similar to a setting that we have seen in Egypt, where, you know, we have a platform, and we have an audience from all walks of life. You have teachers, you have adults, you have seniors, you have students, you have kids. And this is very similar to the setting that was in Rabat Adawiya Square and Al-Nahda Squares, the two major protesting centers in Cairo, where the platform was open for everybody. Anybody can come up to the stage, they can express their political views, they can express their social views, they can pray for people who died or people who got injured. Artists came in, they did paintings, theatrical performances were performed, musical instruments were played. It was a platform open for everybody. Anybody can interact and engage with the audience. A very similar scenario that we have here today. But the thing to keep in mind, the protests that have been happening in Egypt happened for 48 days. 48 continuous days. And the question remains, what is it that forces these people, these peaceful protesters, to continue to protest for 48 continuous days, 30 days of which were in Ramadan, so they had no food and no water, under the scorching sun of 35 degrees Celsius, above 35 degrees Celsius. What is it that compels them? Why? Why are they protesting? So, imagine this. The Egyptian people, they planted a seed in the ground, and they fertilized that ground, and they watered that ground. And in front of their eyes, they saw the shoot, they saw the trunk of a tree start to develop. And they saw the roots dig deep into the ground. And from that tree, fruits started to form slowly. And then one day, some people came in with their chainsaw, and they cut that tree. Now, the people are angry. What's going on? You know, we spend a lot of time in the street. We spent a lot of effort growing this tree, and now you come in and chainsaw it. You see, the tree that I'm talking about is the tree of democracy. And the fruits that came out of it are the various institutions, elected institutions, that the people chose to represent them. One of the fruits, President Morsi, which won by 51.5%. The second one, the Senate, which the people voted in for. The third one is the Constitution, which 64% of the people said yes to. And the fourth one was freedom of expression, freedom of speech, that the Egyptian people have so long yearned for. This is why they were protesting. Because everything that they wanted, everything that they voted for, the hours and hours of waiting in line to go and give in their votes, the hours and hours of researching the various candidates, were basically, at the end of the day, taken by the military, as well as people from the Mubarak era. They came in and put it in the garbage can. And so the people got angry, and they protested for 48 continuous days. Now, a lot of people are going to think that the debate right now is about Morsi, the removal of Morsi, and whether the removal of Morsi is democratic or not. The issue has expanded much, much beyond that. The issue has expanded much, much beyond that. The original topic of this debate, as I was prepared for it, was, does the removal of Morsi hinder or advance the democratic development of Egypt and the socio-political development of the country? Now the debate has become, is the removal of democracy hinder or advance democracy in Egypt? Okay, hold on a sec. If you remove democracy, you have no advancing or hindering of democracy. It's removed, it's done. And so many people think that I'm here to support Morsi. I did not vote for him. This is one thing you should know. I did not vote for him. I supported somebody else, and I can give you his name. But why I'm here today is because I have seen some people on top who want to maintain their power come in, remove a democratic elected president as well as the other elected institutions. You know, last few days I read an article in the Metro News, and basically it was a little discussion, it was a preface for this debate today, discussion. Mr. Gamal Salim was an excellent statement about taking anti-favor speech. This was a few days ago from the Metro News. He said something that I really liked. It was an excellent statement. It was, election does not necessarily need democracy. You can bring a dictator through democracy. And just now, I think you explained the example of Hitler. Excellent, excellent idea, no problem, wonderful. But one thing I want to say, and I can say this with 100% accuracy, that it has never been and will never be, that a dictatorship will breed democracy. That a dictatorship will try and advance free and fair elections. And what we have right now in Egypt is simply a military dictatorship that is trying to bring all the forces of Mubarak back into the country, to replant themselves into the country, and to maintain their political, business, and social powers. That is what they want. Now, the stage that I talked about earlier, me in front of an audience talking about my views and expressions and feelings. August 14th, and many of us saw it on CNN and BBC and CTV and whatever, the dispersal of peaceful protesters who were protesting for 48 continuous days. 48 continuous days. Now, how did these protesters, how were they dispersed? They were dispersed by heavy guns, by machinery, by snipers on top of helicopters, snipers on top of buildings. And let me tell you something, let's think about this logically. 2,600 people died. 2,600 people died. Tens of thousands injured, and tens of thousands more taken as political prisoners. Now you might say, hold on a second, I've read CNN yesterday, I read BBC yesterday, and it was 600 people. And to be truthful, the United Nations Human Rights Commission said that it was at least 600 people. But let's assume it's 600. Let's assume it's 600. I'm amazed that I have to come in today. I'm amazed that I have to come in today and try and argue whether it was 600 or 2,600. You know, it's like me going to the bank and saying, oh, I'm going to deposit $600 today. The banker says, no problem. Or we go, I have $2,600 today, the banker says no problem. We are talking about human lives that were dead, that were shot dead because they were demanding their freedom. That is what we're talking about. Now, you might be imagining, well, what's 600? I want you to imagine rows upon rows of people on the ground, in body bags. The blood showing through the body bags. And the friends and their families going through the body bags, trying to identify their father, their mother, their sister, their brother. In addition to that, you have the thousands of people injured, the pools of blood on the floor, the doctor's clothing all red. This is what you have to imagine. Actually, don't imagine. I read something online yesterday or a few days ago, and it was a peaceful protester who was shot dead. So this peaceful protester was in the mosque, and they called his father to come in and see him. So the father came in to this protester on the ground and started calling to his son. "Wake up, my son. Wake up, my son." But the protester was not responding. The father did not know that his son has died. He didn't tell him. And he continued to say that, "Wake up, my son. Wake up, my son. I bought the furniture for you. I bought the furniture for you. You're going to get married soon. You're going to get married at Eid, which is 2 months from now." You see, this protester who's laying down on the ground right now, motionless, did not go on protest to be killed. He was thinking of having a family. He was going to get married soon. He was going to have children. The reason he went to protest is because he wanted to see Egypt transformed into a democratic society, a society that respects its citizens, a society that cares for its people, a society that does not kill those who protest against what is happening. Now, what has happened in Egypt is nothing but a massacre. And the four major institutions of this: elected president, Senate, Constitution, all gone. Freedom of speech, no more. Therefore, there is no more democracy in Egypt under military rule. And so long as the military is there will not be any democracy. And when I say it's there, I mean in the political scheme. Now, well, maybe there might be some advancements in the sociological aspect, which was part of the topic today as well. Now, let's take a closer look at the military. The Egyptian military has extensive power. Ever since the time it came in 1952, when they came to King Farouk of the Ottoman Empire, and they told him, "Get out of here." And they took control of the country. Ever since 1952, 60 years, Egypt has been under military rule. And it has never occurred before that Egypt was ever under democratic elections ever since, up until President Morsi and the elected institutions came into place. As I stated before, the military and the police have extensive power. Just to give you a simple example, the Egyptian military has 16 different factories. You might be thinking, 16 factories for the production of weapons, or the refurbishment of various weaponry, whatever it is. No, they are factories for the production of macaroni. They are factories for the production of dairy products, clothing factories, fish farms. This is basically a business. Furthermore, what you have is that the Egyptian military is in all walks of civil life. It's not just in the political aspect, it's not just in the military and police forces, but no, they have all walks of civil life. What do I mean by that? I mean that the premiers of the states, just here in Canada we have premiers of the various provinces. In Egypt you have premiers for the various governorates. Same thing. The only difference is here in Canada you elect your premier. In Egypt you are forced upon, or a premier is forced upon you. It's elected or chosen by the government. 19 out of the 25, just a few weeks ago, actually last week, 19 out of the 25 new premiers that were put into positions for the various governorates were generals. 19 out of the 25. Furthermore, the mayors of the major cities, generals. The board of governors of various universities, generals. The board of directors, or the city council members of the various cities, they're generals. The CEOs And the big investors in the major corporations, crown and private corporations, they're generals. The leaders of research institutes, generals. Now, based on that, this is a military and police state. This is not a democratic state. And when President Morsi came in, along with the other elected institutions, he started to try and clean up. He started to remove and tried to remove the military from the political, social, and economic schemes. But since a lot of the military has business interests, since they have excellent political and social power, and they want to maintain that power, they had to find a different way. And that different way was by basically chainsawing the tree of democracy and bringing people to square number one. Now, the other thing I want to say, so this is the sociological aspect. What about the political aspect? Maybe there's something in there. Maybe there's some advantage or something. Who knows? Now, when the military came in, they started signaling out specific individuals. So that when General Sisi was reporting the dissolvation of the Senate, the dissolvation of the Constitution, as well as the removal of Morsi from power, there was a judicial order that was ready. It was ready. A judicial order for members of the Muslim Brotherhood. A judicial order for the major political parties who the people supported and voted for. More specifically, the Freedom and Justice Party, as well as the Sender Party. Now, it's important to note that I did not, once again, it's not vote for Morsi, and I do not support the Muslim Brotherhood, so let's say I'm a Muslim Brotherhood supporter. I'm not. But what I'm seeing is that the military wants to remove any democratic forms whatsoever. Back to the political idea. When the military came, we started signaling out specific individuals, taking them as prisoners. Anybody that opposed the views of the military was taken as prisoner. And we have numerous examples for Muslim Brotherhood leaders. In addition, they started favoring specific political parties over the other ones. Now, what does that do? What does that do? What it does is that it creates favoritism amongst the military. It creates favoritism amongst some political groups over others. And as a consequence, it comes to being that it does not matter whether you're there for the people or not. It matters whether you're there for the military or not. If you support the military and its views, you're safe. If you support the military and its whatever it is, you're safe. If you start going against them, you'll get punished. You'll be put into jail. Now, the last thing I want to say, and this is mostly to my Christian brothers and my Muslim brothers who are in support of the military. It has always been the case that the people on the top are trying to maintain their political, economic, and social status. They want to maintain. They want to be on the top and everybody else on the bottom. And many of us have read in the news, in CNN and BBC, the burning of churches. Now, the thing is, I don't have anything about Christians. Four of my closest friends, one of them is a Sikh, one of them is a Christian, one of them is a Muslim, and one of them is an atheist. He doesn't have a religion. So I have nothing to do with the religion. If you believe in whatever you want. But, when it comes to the situation in Egypt right now, in terms of the burning of the churches, many people and many news sources will come out and say, and even actually the Egyptian sources themselves, where 95% of the various newspapers are privately owned. Even the government-owned newspapers were saying that the Muslim Brotherhood were the ones responsible for the burning of the churches. Now, I want to recall some evidence. This is the evidence that you have, and you judge. January 1st, 2011. January 1st, 2011. The bombing of the church in Alexandria. Some of you may have heard about it, some of you have not. Basically, Christians went to the church to pray, and when they were coming out after their prayer, a bomb exploded, and about 23 people died. 23 innocent human lives died. Habib al-Adli, who was the interior minister at the time, under Mubarak, came out and said that it was an Islamic extremist group who did it. After the revolution has ended, supposedly has ended, February 11th, a report came out, March 2011, from a newspaper called Yom 7, Yom 7. It's a prominent newspaper. And many of the anti-Morsi, I guess you could call it, pro-military coopers go and listen to it, go and read it. And I go to read it, I want to see what the opposite views say. I go and read it sometimes. They did a report that said that the Interior Minister himself, Habib al-Adli, was the one who ordered the bombing of the Church of Alexandria. This is evidence number one. Evidence number two has to do with the Maspero massacre that happened in October of 2011. October 2011. Basically, if I remember correctly, Christians were protesting because a church of theirs got burned in Upper Egypt. So they went to Cairo to protest. They went peacefully to protest against what has happened. So they went to Maspero, which is the center for the radio and television center in Cairo. And you think they'd be greeted with flowers and sand and all that. No. They were greeted by the military, who came in, started firing live ammunition, and used their military vehicles to start stepping on them. At least 20 people, peaceful Christian people, died that day. Who gave the orders to kill the Christian people? Who gave the orders to kill the peaceful protesters? The military council. This is evidence number two. Evidence number three has to do with the current burning of the churches right now. I want to take the witness of Father Yusuf Yaqub. He's a father, I guess, at one of the churches in Ilminia. It's one of the provinces. I believe he was the head of the Mary Gerges Church. You can go and check it out. Where he came in on TV. On TV is another pro-military TV station. He came in on TV. He said that whoever burned the church that he was in were not Muslim Brotherhood people. They were not Muslim extremists, but rather they were thugs. And when they tried to contact the local authorities were too busy. They said they were too busy. And therefore they did not come in to prevent the looting of the church, as well as to stop the burning of the church. They let it burn. Furthermore, he claims that the burning of the churches did not start on August 14th. It started on July 3rd, when General Sisi was giving the declaration that Morsi is out, the Constitution is done, the Senate is gone, and so forth and so on. At the same time, the burning of the churches started. It was concurrent at the same time. So everything was planned. Furthermore, I want to bring another witness. And this one is Bishop Makrios. He is also from Ilminia. Ilminia has a lot of Christian Coptic Christians there. Where he came in and said on various news outlets, that the burning of the churches has expanded dramatically. Ever since the August 14th massacre of 2,600 people and the injuries of thousands, it escalated dramatically. Once again, it was occurring at the same time. You would think, if you were to think about this logically, you would think, okay, so there was forceful dispersal of peaceful protesters, and as a consequence, there is retaliation a little bit afterwards, a few hours afterwards, a few days afterwards, whatever the case may be, of burning of the churches. But when you have the burning of the churches happening at the same time as when the protests were being forcefully put down, that gets you to think a little bit. That once again, everything was planned. Everything was on a piece of paper, ready to go. The last thing I want to conclude with, and this is to the military coupers, those who support the military coup, and those who have their opposing views, no problem, we can discuss this afterwards. Specifically to the military and the police forces. It is important to note that you may have cut the trunk of the tree of democracy. It's true, you may have done that. But there's one thing you've forgotten. One thing you have forgotten, and that is the roots. The roots still dug into the ground. And those roots represent the will of the people. the will of the Egyptian people, who came in on January 25, 2011 to demand 4 things: bread, freedom, social justice, and individual dignity. These are the 4 things that they demanded. And now this, what I have in my hand right now, the symbol that you see in my hands right now, is a symbol of the will of the people, the will of the Egyptian people. And they will continue to move forward, and they will continue to strive towards getting what they wanted, and towards getting justice for all the people who died and those who got injured. The Egyptian people have become fearless. People are not afraid anymore. And that is something that the military and the police have to take in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. We are indeed fortunate to have attracted 2 speakers of such eloquence, knowledgeability, and passion, and we are indeed grateful. I'd like to thank you both. Excuse me, sir, you're out of order. Can you please sit down? You'll have your turn. At this time, members of the audience are normally invited to come and speak, ask questions, make comments. However, the first speaker has requested an opportunity to rebut some comments made by the second speaker. I believe that he feels that there were some inaccurate statements. So I have acceded to his request and will give him not more than 5 minutes to rebut. In fairness to the second speaker, Mohammed, you will then have an opportunity to, I'll give you 2.5 minutes to comment exclusively on the rebuttal content. Is that fair? Yes, because he's only going to be commenting on your talk, and then you have a chance to rebut. If you need 5, I'll give you 5 as well. But okay, thereafter, it'll be open mic. Now, just before I progress to the next stage, I'd like to enlist your input on a question. One of the struggles that we have as organizers is finding topics that will interest people, that are relevant, topical, stimulating, and finding speakers. And it's a perpetual challenge. You can imagine trying to find good topics and good speakers every week. And for that reason, in addition to all the others, I'm especially indebted to Aliyah, who managed to find these 2 great speakers that we had today. Thank you for that, for acknowledging them. Now, by a show of hands, how many people here would welcome the opportunity to talk about Syria next week? Is that something that has any resonance to this crowd? If so, can you, by a show of hands, who would like to see that topic debated? Okay, there's a sufficient... Oh, and the people behind me. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Okay, I think, so that'll be the next topic. In addition to that, if you know people who are knowledgeable, who have some passion about the topics, please bring them forward, because we need voices, we need speakers, we need topics, and this program can't survive without civic participation. So thank you for that. Okay, next week it'll be Syria. Without any further ado, Doctor, 5 minutes. And it'll be confined to rebutting points raised by the other speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that many people here are tired of so many details about what's going on in Egypt, so I will try just to raise a number of open questions for the audience, so this could be subject to further discussion when it comes to the questions. Just try to draw some analogy between what's going on in Egypt and what could be some sort of a concern for you as Canadians. Just imagine these questions. Imagine that the Prime Minister of Canada comes from a jihadi terrorist organization. That's an open question, and I don't need an answer for that. Imagine that your democratically elected Prime Minister belongs to a jihadi organization which is embracing violence, embracing extremism, exactly what is going on in Afghanistan and other places. That's the first question. Second, imagine that the Prime Minister of Alberta or the Mayor of Calgary is coming from a terrorist group which killed innocent people, including foreigners, tourists in the country. This is exactly what happened in Egypt when President Morsi appointed a governor for the famous city of Luxor who belonged to the Islamist movement, which killed more than 60 tourists in Egypt in 1997. He became the governor of Luxor, and he became the main, if you will, official on that city. So imagine this situation. The third question, imagine that the Prime Minister of Canada is allowing his supporters, is allowing people who are supporting his party, okay, to surround the Canadian Constitutional Court in order to prevent it from issuing any decrees or any verdict challenging his supremacy or challenging his decisions. That's the third question. The fourth question, imagine that the Prime Minister of Canada, who sworn in to respect the Canadian Constitution, issue a constitutional declaration which put himself above the law, which put himself above any judicial supervision or any judicial accountability. What would be your reaction as a Canadian citizen? Imagine that the Prime Minister of Canada is releasing terrorists from Canadian jails, allowing them to carry weapons and to terrorize Canadians all over the country with different political orientations and different political, if you will, identities. This is exactly what happened in Egypt when President Morsi allowed his supporter to break in a peaceful demonstration in front of the presidential palace. They beated the peaceful demonstration. They tortured women in the street. Actually, one of my friends in the American University in Cairo, okay, she was tortured in front of the presidential palace by Morsi's supporters. She was sexually harassed by his supporters, and she was dragged naked in the street. And the president did not say a word on what happened. So these are just some open questions which could be somehow open the floor for discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you. While I thank you for your comments, Doctor, I must call you offside because the purpose of a rebuttal is to express criticism of the comments that came from the other speaker. So, for example, I thought there might have been some factual inaccuracies that you were going to correct, and I do this with the greatest love and respect, but it's my unpleasant task to maintain law and order here. Mohammed, do you have any response? Yes, please come and rebut. Now remember, your comments are going to be confined to the last bit of commentary that came from Dr. Salim. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks a lot. Now, you know, Mr. Salim came in and gave us some different imaginings, some different scenarios. And what I'm talking about are not scenarios. We're talking about evidence on the ground. The first thing he came up with was, you know, imagine the Prime Minister is a terrorist, that he was a part of a jihadi group, or whatever the case may be. If you were to go into Google, and if you were to say, Stephen Harper terrorist, you're gonna find pages that talk about Stephen Harper's being a terrorist. You're gonna find people that say Stephen Harper is a dictator. Do that with Obama. Do that with Francois Hollande. You're gonna do the same thing. You will find whatever you like. The thing is also, this is another rebuttal about the governor of Luxor, who Mr. Morsi appointed to come in and lead the governorate for whatever it is. The thing is, after seeing the protesting from the people, the Luxor governor stepped down. And I think this was actually after a few days. So this was a stepping down after seeing the protests. Why? Because he felt that the popular vote, the popular people did not want him. Now you might say, well, what about the president? It's a completely different story. The whole people wanted President Morsi. The people in Luxor, you know, they don't want the non-elected premier. He's non-elected. They can demand somebody else to come in. Maybe another thought. The other thing I want to talk about is if you look at the support of Stephen Harper right now. Personally, in the last elections, I did not vote for the Conservatives. I voted for the NDP. I think that they have similar views to what I have. This is what I think. But if you were to go on Google, do some search, you'll see that 25 to 35% of the people support Stephen Harper. 25 to 35%. Am I allowed am I allowed to come in, get a few signatures from a few million people, protest for a few days, and ask for the removal of Prime Minister Harper and his government? The answer is no, because there's a constitution. There's a constitution that decides who governs and for how long they govern. This is the other point I wanted to make. And the last one regarding the torturing of the Muslim Brotherhood, I gave you the example. I gave you the example of the burning of the churches. And I gave you evidence. I gave you names, and I gave you evidence of people who were witnesses who said that thugs were the major reason for the burning of the churches. And just thinking logically about that, it would make sense that these same thugs would be responsible to try and create chaos in the country, to try and divide the people, to try and make the Muslims and the Christians start to clash with one another. And so at the end of the day, the military comes in, like I said earlier, they become part of this triangle. When you have a problem, you go to them. When you have a solution, you go to them. They want to be on top. This is what they want to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Okay, the floor now belongs to you. If you have any questions or comments, please come up, stand over here, and then I'll recognize you one by one as you present yourselves, and you can take the mic. I remind you that you have to stay on topic. And, okay, this gentleman is known to me. His name is Flash. He's been here before, and he usually has something to say.
Okay, guys, I just want to say a prayer for the people that are gone in Egypt, when they went home, right? Divine language. Check it out. Tsiga kitsi otene, situation skotepa ya. Onitariema, okoi mauski, mushma, mokama. Tsiga kitsi otene, situation skotepa ya. Hatsa. Nana skomutet for his baby discount. Nana skomutet. Kaskiki. What I said was, thank you for this medicine. Thank you for this beautiful day. I love all of you, and I will see you again.
Gentleman in the red hat, please step up. Are you guys hearing well enough back there?
Nice. Can everyone hear this?
Oh, wait a minute.
I can hear it.
I'm gonna ease out, so be well and take care of yourself.
Clay, there's Clay. Okay, I'd like to say that first of all, I don't have a personal stake in this really, the way you guys do. I'm about as Egyptian as Stephen Harper or anyone else. But I did actually, when I was a little kid, my parents took me to Seattle to see the treasures of King Tutankhamun, and it just completely blew me away. And I would not like to have this country blown away, in another sense of the word, no pun intended, by like civil war, like you were mentioning there earlier, because like you were saying, it basically has got two sides here, and the military is acting as sort of a third side. And I think if the two sides were let to like the Morsi supporters and I'm not sure, like either the protester side, what's the other side called? The what? The pro-democracy side. So if the pro-democracy side and the Morsi supporters were just to, just to sort of have at it and at will, I wouldn't like to see that, because that would be a civil war, and you know who steps into these civil wars worldwide is the Americans, and that's the last thing I'd like to see, is like another big American sort of conflict out there in the world, because it's not their business. And I think I'd like to go see the Sphinx and the pyramid some days, and I don't want to see that. I don't want it to be a dangerous experience. I'd like to see it ended peacefully. So, and furthermore, you mentioned first, Dr. What is it? Dr. what? Dr. Salib, you mentioned that democracy doesn't always ensure elections don't always ensure democracy. Well, I'd like to also add to you that rallies and protests don't always ensure democracy either. I mean, we've got quite a few people here, I'm sure a lot of us have cell phones. We could get our Twitter friends and write our little hashtag Tomkins Garden or whatever, and just maybe we could get like 300 or 400 people down here in a flash, you know. It wasn't so long ago that we saw this whole street covered in people with the big flames fever in 2004. You know, and luckily that was for a peaceful end, right? But you know, what if that had been not for for the Flames to win the cup, and what if it was for something like the mayor must go, Nancy must go. Now we got like 500,000 people lining, 17th Avenue, saying, "Man, we're not leaving 17th Avenue until Nancy is ousted from his position." Why? Well, there's one or two things we don't know why. But anyways, all I'm saying is that let's have. Social media isn't everything. It's not all it is. Not everything you read on the internet is true. I mean, you can read stuff on the internet that says Stephen Harper is a terrorist, but I mean, he may be a conservative, but I don't think he's a terrorist in the same sense that the Egyptian guys are terrorists. I don't like the man, but I'm rambling. I'm off topic, and like I said, I don't have a personal stake. It's you guys' thing. I just came down here because it's kind of an interest, and I like to talk in public. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. Next gentleman in the white t-shirt, and please feel free to identify yourself. Give us your name. No, the other gentleman.
My name's Andy Robinson.
Thank you, Andy. Your name, sir? As you wish.
Everybody, my name is Ayman. I'm from Palestine originally, and I just made a few notes here. Just be patient with me. I'm not good with public speech here. My first comments here is about the propaganda that we're dealing with always with the media, terrorists, jihadists, and all this crap that we always hear from the media. See, where I came from, long time ago, and I don't want to change the topic, it's just a quick comment. Long time ago, the governments of Palestine were called Fatah. And at that time, Fatah were terrorists. Everybody hates Fatah, they're terrorists, they want to get rid of them. And then we made an election and a new group came called Hamas. Nobody likes Hamas. Hamas is terrorist. Now Fatah is the best for the state. So you're never going to make anybody happy. Same like Al-Qaeda. Everybody here think Al-Qaeda is terrorist. Al-Qaeda was created by the USA to get rid of Russia during the war, the Cold War. And when they didn't get what they're supposed to get, now they become a terrorist and a war happened. Who's paying the price? Us, all the time. That's my first comment. My second comment for Dr. Salim here, when he said that President Morsi is in a safe place, he failed to say that President Morsi thrown in jail since the war happened or whatever it is. He's thrown in jail, nobody can see him, none of his troops sees him. Only a few people from the government of the state, they say that they saw him. We didn't see him, we don't know where he is. I'm not his supporter, I'm not even Egyptian. But I mean, a president that's been elected by 64% of the people, and the population in Egypt is about 100 million. So you're talking about 64 million elected this person. Now he's in jail, we don't even know if he's alive or not. We don't know. I don't think this is a safe place anyways. And he mentioned about the professional job that the military did, and he mentioned that they were struggling to remove Mubarak from power. I just want to mention that the same people now, the military people and the general of the people, is the same people they were there at Mubarak time, because you can't have a general for the army that you create him in 1 year. All these people, they've been trained for 30 or 60 years to become the general of the army. So don't tell me that, what's his name, Sisi? General Sisi is not Mubarak, guys, because he used to be Mubarak puppy for thousands of years, 60 years with Mubarak. And one last comment, somewhere here, can't see it. Again, for the military professional job that he mentioned, I just want to mention that we are living in the 21st century. You don't need to be educated in politics or anything to find out this information. My 4-year-old son can go on YouTube and see what the professional army did to the people. They were sniping them from all over the country. And you can research what Morsi government did for the last year, terrorist act, that you won't find even one video except if they made one. And you can see the military in few days for the protest did over 2,600, and we know that for a fact. I'm not worried about the media. Over 2,600 that have been killed with snipers. The snipers killed them. You can see all the shots in the head, in the heart. Everyone have a smartphone. Just jump on YouTube and look at it. And that's not something you can create. It's something on the street. You can see it. That was a great professional job by his army. And my last comment. I've been saying my last comments in the beginning. I thought so. I'm not good in public speech. What was the next one? All I'm saying is, in the Middle East, any government that is not blessed, and that's how we believe, that is not blessed by Israeli government and the US government, they're terrorists. So we will have terrorists for the rest of we will be terrorists for the rest of our life. I guess that's how it is. Because 64 million Egyptian elected Morsi, and they're not going away. The fear broke, like Dr. Mohammed said. They're not going anywhere. So I guess his professional army have two options: either snipe all of them, or just let them rule the country for 4 years and do election. I dare they would do election, because first time it was 64 million, now probably 90 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Barb? I think we're going to set 3-minute limits.
Hi, my name is
Carry on.
Barbara. I was watching the news, and there was all the dead in the mosques, and people came to claim their dead, and Egyptian people were saying they wanted the bodies, they had to sign a form saying they died of natural causes. I'd like to know if our speakers would like to comment on that.
Doctor? I don't think the doctor had your attention. Can you repeat the question?
When the Egyptians came to the mosque to claim the bodies, they were asked to sign documents saying they died of natural causes before they could get the bodies. Would our speakers like to comment on that?
You're saying they committed suicide.
Okay, the question, I'll repeat it because apparently it wasn't clear. As I understood the question, it amounts to this. That when members of the family came to claim bodies, before the bodies would be released, they would have to sign some kind of acknowledgement declaring that the bodies, that the individuals died of natural causes. And the questioner is seeking comments from both speakers as to the truthfulness of this. Thank you.
Frankly speaking, if this is happening in Egypt, that's totally unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. And that's the first time I hear about this incident. And it will be great if you can document this case, because we all respect human rights, regardless of the race, regardless of the religion. And the fact that we have a political conflict with the Muslim Brotherhood does not mean that we will accept any violation for their human rights. So I beg you, please, if you have any evidence of that, please, to bring it up. Because we are the first one to stand against these violations, because we were the first to suffer from these violations. Thank you.
Mohammed?
Okay, thank you. Yes, what you said was absolutely right. It was correct. It's not an if scenario, it has happened. And I go into a YouTube video that I actually watched personally of a famous actor. Her name was Liqa. I can't remember what her last name is, but she's a famous actor. And she came on TV on one of the pro-military news channels and TV channels, and she talked about her brother who was standing on the balcony, and he poured water on the protesters walking down on the street. Now, the reason he poured water was because it's 35 plus degrees Celsius, the people are hot, so they pour water, the people, the locals, so as to cool them down. A sniper saw what he did, and he shot him dead. Now, this actor came up onto that TV station, and she said, so they took the body to the morgue, and in order for the officials to release the body, it was not natural causes. This is a misconception. She had to sign a document saying that he committed suicide. It's not natural causes. Natural causes means you're walking down the street, you get hit by a car, that's a natural cause. Walking down the street, you get hit by lightning, that's a natural cause. They demanded that anybody that comes out from the morgue, they need to sign a form that they committed suicide. Why? Why are they doing that? Because they do not care about anybody. Because they do not care about human dignity. Because they want to conceal their torture, their killing, their murder with official documents. So that when they come out and say, oh look, we have an official document that says the guy died, out of natural causes or suicide. This is what they want. But this is not what they're getting. And this has happened to many people. It's not just this individual. Many, many people. One of the things I read on, do I have more time, or do you think that's
30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. One of the other things I heard was the people who, there was hundreds of people dead. Hundreds of people dead. They go and try to identify their dead. And so they go to these police officing stations, and this is not just this individual, many others. They go in and ask them, we want to take my brother, I want to take my sister, I want to take whatever. The first thing you slap on the table, you have to do this form. So this occurrence has occurred, and it is occurring, and you can go on YouTube, and if you want to come and talk to me later, I can give you the YouTube video. It's in Arabic, but you can find a translator, whatever the case may be. But it is happening. It is not an if scenario, it is an is scenario.
Thank you. Thank you. Next intervener, Judy Lapointe, I believe. You've been outed. You've been outed.
Okay, I've been here before. Really nervous as hell. Diagnosed delusional medically, so have a thing with doctors. I see a completely different picture than most people. Kind of offended with natural causes. We live in a causal world. Every death has a cause that we just sort of say, oh, that's just natural, it's okay. If we have an acceptable way people die, why should we worry about what kind of ways they die? When we're going to compare, one thing that I'm kind of irritated with is these talks about there's war over here, there's this big, huge, bad thing going on over there, and we sit and listen to the big, bad story, and then we go home and do nothing. Pardon me? Okay. So what I'd like to see is when we do have a problem that we're trying to address, to offer what is a solution, what is it we can do to make a difference. Because just telling people this is how bad it is, we're going to be just left in chaos, not knowing what the hell to do next. We are all connected in this. Just because there's bad things going on in a different part of the world, there's a good deal of what's going on in Canada that's perpetuating this. And that I'd like to hear a lot more of, is what Canada's doing to perpetuate these wars. The other thing that I'm getting 3 minutes to discuss is democracy. I see things from bigness and smallness, they're both identical. So I don't really look at the details of the big bad thing that's going on. I look at, well, what's really going on in the big picture? And in a big picture with democracy, it's always the majority wins. So it's 51% get to say what the rules are. The 49% that are in disagreement are the ones that are being tortured, the ones that are suffering from the rules made by democracy. And where we are now with the world, the pollution, all of these wars escalating, we're getting what we asked for. It was democracy. We voted for this. We voted to be rich. We voted to be the guy with the most money, is the guy that has the most respect. And now, when they're really, really successful at it, we don't like them. It's like watching Donald Trump being angry with China when they're just being a better player at the same game he's playing. My suggestion is we need a completely different structure where everybody has an input, where the one that's harmed by any rule has the louder voice. because ignored problems grow. So if we have a democracy of 51% that says, here's the new rule, and everybody's loving it for 100 years, and one person shows up and says that's harmful, it's causing harm, we need to listen to that one person, because that one person grows into millions real fast in the lifespan of the earth.
Thank you very much.
3 minutes.
3 minutes are up. Gentleman here, please. Please introduce yourself. It could be a question or a comment.
My name is Ahmed. I have a comment on Dr. Gamal Salim's speech. He mentioned a lot about terrorist groups and terrorist protesters. I have a comment here to the audience. Have you seen terrorists before they protest in the streets, before they do terrorist acts? Have you seen, like, you know, people before bombing Boston or bombing in the US, they take permission and protest in the street before they actually go and bomb the places? So, and here another comment about, you know, they said there's people in the protest, they have weapons. So when the two big sit-in camps got raided by the police and armies and thugs, they actually, you know, when thousands of people killed, you know, why they didn't have any military people or police or thugs or just different people getting killed back? You know, are you scared to fight back if you have weapons? You know, so if you have weapons and it's a civil war in the street, then you have to fight back and forth. So, and also have a comment about Muslim Brotherhood being a terrorist group, as Muhammad mentioned. You know, you can find in the news or on the internet, everybody is terrorist. You know, you can put any name and put terrorist right beside it, and you know they were not involved of any terrorist attacks, the Muslim Brotherhood, before. Even if there's some of their members were accused, you are not proven, you know, you cannot be proven guilty. You know, if you are accused of something, you know, you have court system that tells you are guilty, and then after that you cannot be like, you know, I'm saying this guy over there is terrorist. That doesn't mean anything. He has to be proven guilty first to be a terrorist. That's all that I have to say, and thanks so much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Much appreciated. Gentleman here.
My reference is historical in nature about the nation of Egypt, and it regards their military and even in this case priest class that has dominated this country since the beginning of their recorded time. So you can take it back to their first pharaoh, which would be Akhenaten, who was ousted by that same classes. There's just a similar hysteria that's going on now. So this is not a new story that we're talking about, folks. This is an ancient story that we're all dealing with, not just Egypt, including us with our harpers and our organizations pulling and pushing their agendas this way and that. So our goal is to take away the powers that we falsely gave them in the first place and give them back to the people to choose again. So before we do that, all of that's going to have to be necessary is we're going to have to come to a point of forgiveness at some point to actually move past killing one another. So forgiveness in the first hand, I wanted to just touch this a little bit. Forgiveness is not about forgiving your brother for what you thought he did. It's forgiving yourself for thinking that he did it wrongly.
Thank you. That was very enlightening. Could you share your name with us? No thanks? Okay. Anonymous comments are welcome and appreciated.
Thank you. Judy, can we actually let that other lady come up first? We're going to let everyone have one go first, then you can come back. If you could just tell us your name.
Yvonne Derdix or Greco, whichever you prefer. What I did this summer is instead of going to the Stampede, I went to the Benalto Rodeo. Because at the Stampede, they charge you to get in, and then they charge you again to go see the actual action. So I've never actually been to a rodeo. It was amazing. We volunteered at the door, took tickets. with the Red Deer Fire Search and Rescue. And what I saw is little kids playing. One was dressed up like a cowboy. The other kid wasn't really dressed up at all. I'm not sure what nationality they were. I'm not going to assume anything, but the little kid that wasn't dressed up like a cowboy had a gun, because they were selling them at the rodeo, toys and such. And the other little kid was dressed up as like a cowboy, so the guy with the gun shot the cowboy. And he made the little kid cry too, and it really hurt me inside to see that the children aren't learning the right things.
Thank you very much. This gentleman here, please, if you'd like to come up.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Yeah.
Hello, hi. My name is Farid. I was born in Quebec City, originally from a Moroccan family. My parents are from Morocco. My wife is from Morocco. I travel to Morocco every year. I'm not good at this. I never liked to for like public speech, but I've been in university in Vancouver. I've taken flying courses, and I know how to fly airplanes. And when September 11 came up, I gave up everything. They see like somebody with a like Arab name or Muslim descent or something, they consider him as terrorist. No, I'd like to say that like the real terrorist is the Egyptian army. They're the one who causing terror since the beginning, since long time ago. And Egypt was the second civilization in the world from like 4,000 years ago. So, and it's been like this forever. And with people, single people, trying to make a change and trying to put on their voice, and seems like nobody listens, because who are they? They're just people. They're just animals. But same like the dictators. You remove, like in Morocco, we have a kingdom. Okay, the king is good and bad. Like everybody have good and bad. But if you remove a dictator or you remove a president or a prime minister, what it causes in the country, it causes chaos. Big chaos. What happened with Saddam Hussein in Iraq? I have lots of Iraqi friends. People didn't like him, but they liked him as a dictator. Why? Because he's he's ruling the country. After, of course, he killed a lot of innocent people, but how many people have died, innocent people, after that he's been removed? A lot more.
It says it's dead, but it's still recording. So
people didn't like Morsi. Well, they should just be patient or be involved in politics. In Canada, you have something to say against the government. What you